music publishing is dead and it's time to abandon ship. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. I actually already recorded a video about this, and it came out to like an hour and a half long. So I wanted to try and make a couple videos that are a little more bite-sized. So I wanted to talk specifically about publishing. So there's this myth that isn't, I don't think it's really prevalent anymore, is that you can't really make a whole lot of money in getting a big record deal like we used to see in these 90s movies all the time. And even talking about 90s bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and things like that. I found an article which was really insightful. The numbers are a little old because it's from the 1990s again, by a guy named Steve Albini. You may have heard of him. I'm going to link to the article below. So let's take a look here really quick. There we go. So these are kind of hypothetical figures that he says in the article above, that it's really common. This is not like a made up situation to make it sound or look worse than it actually is. So I actually went and made my own budget, and we're going to look at that after this, but I just want to kind of talk about the things that he talked about. So the first thing, if we're looking at the top, the advance. So the advance is the big thing that is really exciting when you think about getting a record deal, because it's the sudden influx of money that you get to spend. And if you've been a musician for any amount of time, you know that it's hard. You're not really making a whole lot of money out on the road. People aren't buying your merchandise, and they're not buying your albums in the numbers that you would really need to make money, because you don't have the money to put into your business in the way that you need to be able to pull money out of. That the saying, you got to spend money to make money. So the advance is the record company basically saying, here's some money. This is how much money we think you'll be able to earn. So it's a loan. It's not free money. You got to pay it back. So this is the first thing that you got to be aware of. This is an advance, a loan. So he says earlier in this article, again from the 90s, that this hypothetical band, signed a 4-year contract for $1 million. So $250,000 over 4 years, that's $1 million. So this is just the first year that this band would be touring. So if you're on a major label, you got to have a manager. You got to pay the manager. You got to pay your legal fees, because you want to make sure that you're getting a fair deal from your contract. And again, I don't want to go through and read this article for you. If you're really interested, come take a look at it. Now, your recording budget. This is where the bulk of your advance is going. So it's $150,000. The items listed below that are what equal up to $150,000. So this isn't like $150,000 for the recording budget plus $50,000 for the producer, plus the studio. This is all bundled up down to right here. So this is your recording budget. Equals $150,000. Now again, this is from 25 years ago, so you're going to be spending more than that due to inflation and other cost increases, which may even itself out at the end, all things being equal. So another big thing, especially in the 90s, you had to have a music video. That was a big part of your production, of your promotion for selling this album. Because if you were on MTV, you're getting millions of views a day. We're pre-YouTube, so this was like your built-in YouTube audience. Suddenly, people across the country were seeing your music, and they'd go out and they'd buy your album. So this $30,000, again, that is these numbers. Okay, so these are your expenses to make this video. You're not making any money on this video. Again, these are all expenses. Okay, with the idea that you're going to sell enough records that you're gonna make up all these expenses, right? So band fund, this is now that you're going on tour, you need to have equipment that's going to last for the tour. So we talk about rehearsal space, new equipment. This doesn't even, cool fancy rack for lighting for the bass amp, but this doesn't even talk about, microphone stands or microphones or cables and that sort of thing, which is a big time expense. You kind of burn through those on a tour. Not even talking about that. So now a couple of these, you may say, well, Matt, what, a blowout party for you and your friends? Right. You could cut that expense out, right? We could theoretically get rid of that expense. And there's a couple others that we could talk about getting rid of. But let's talk about one of the big arguments for being a musician as well. If you're on a big label, you're going to be able to make a lot of money on tour. So this is our estimated tour expenses. And actually, this isn't really estimated. You can budget this really hard, and you see that they have here. So that's your bus. Oops. $25,000 for a crew. $7,500. Food and per diem, $78.50. Now these numbers especially are higher because minimum wage is higher. If you're paying your guys minimum wage, which you wouldn't be at this point. If you paid these guys minimum wage, it would be closer to like $8,800. Fuel prices are a lot more expensive now than they were in 1990. Consumables, we're talking like toothbrush, toothpaste. This could also include things like cables and microphone stands that tend to break a lot. Guitar strings, guitar picks, wardrobe. We're not just talking like your heavy metal armor with your chainmail and stuff like that. We're just talking about like underwear, Okay? And promotion, this is like things like your posters and making sure that the venue is setting you up right. So now, tour gross income. This is an estimate, and in the article he says that the agent believes that they can make $1,000 to $2,000 a night. So that's where this estimate is coming from. It's not like he just pulled the number out of the mist. This is what the agent predicted that they could make. Of that, your agent gets a cut, and your manager gets a cut. Now, if you don't know the difference, a manager is the guy who kind of deals with your expenses, figures out liaisons between you and the label. They really do a lot of your business work, which as a full-time musician, you kind of need someone to do that. It's an important job. Then your agent, on the other hand, is who books for you. And so those are really separate jobs. You can find someone who will do both, and that's up to you if you ever decide to do something like this. But if you find someone who's going to do both, they're going to be doing twice the work, so you're going to be paying them roughly the same amount. Now, merchandise. Another big argument about making money on tour is, well, you make most of your money from merchandise. So in a standard record label contract, and this wouldn't be from the label. This would be a separate company would give you an advance and say, here's $20,000 for you to make T-shirts and hats and posters and this and that. Again, this is an advance that you have to pay back from that money that you earn, ideally from merchandise. Most bands, you won't make this money back the first year. You won't make it back because you're not big enough. You're not big enough. Again, your manager gets a cut of that. You want to make sure your lawyer looks over that contract. You got a publishing advance. Again, advance means a loan, which your employees have to get a cut from. So now let's get to the nitty-gritty. This is the number that we've all been waiting for. If your record sales, you had a great video, you had a great album, you sold 250,000 albums at $12 a piece. Again, today, who buys albums? Almost nobody buys albums anymore. So this number is skewed towards 25 years ago for sure, and we'll talk about that later. That's $3 million. Now, $3 million, it'd be worth it. If you made that $300 and that went straight into your pocket, that'd be totally worth it. But here's the problem: as the artist, you're only making 13% of that. 13%. So this number right here, the $351,000, that's what goes into the artist's pocket. Okay? So if you subtract that, if you subtract from that the advance, the producer's point, so this is the kind of thing that after you've already paid the producer, but the producer also makes royalties on top of what you paid them because they did the work for that. It's kind of, this is a contractual thing. Not all contracts do that. Promotion budget. So this is stuff that we talked about earlier, your video, your things like that, adding up to this. And now this number here is, again, he talks about this theoretical ban, having signed with a lesser label before they got this major label contract. Well, $50,000 is what the previous label wanted in order to let you out of the contract. So that is a net loss of $14,000. So not only we saw some huge numbers. Not only did you not make money, you lost money. This is a big deal. This is something that I never thought about. I thought, excuse me, there's 14,000. I always thought, well, man, yeah, I know you're not making what we think that a rock star would make, but you gotta be making something, right? I mean, maybe it's not that much, but you shouldn't be losing money by any means. So let's see what the record company makes. So you sold 250,000 records at $12 a piece. Well, they sold those records to the major distributors at $6.50. So already $5.50 of that is to the distribution agents. So we're talking like back in the day, Tower Records, Warehouse Music, Best Buy, anywhere that you would traditionally find a record or CD or tape, you know what I mean. But the rest of that money, $1,625,000, is back. This is income based on investment for sure. So of this number, of this $1.6 million, $351,000, that was the artist's royalties, because that was 13% of retail value. Okay, but as we saw from before, the artists still owe the record companies $14,000 based on the expenses that the record company put forward for the artist to begin with. So now the manufacturing cost, because this is a cost of production. This is what production companies do, is they put up the money to produce the physical part, the action of recording. So at $2.20, again, these are old numbers, we're looking at $500,000. So you subtract these three numbers from this big one. This is how much money your band made the record company. So the band made the record company, almost $750,000, while you owe them money. Okay? So the balance sheet, this is what everybody earned. That's what the record company earned. The producer earned. The manager, your manager, the studio, previous label, your agent, your lawyer. Now, he has this number here at the end, which I can't really for the life of me figure out where he got this number, but this is what he says the band members would have earned each for an entire year. That's what the band earned. That's That's nothing. That's less than nothing. So he says you would have made these guys made a third of what they made if they would have just worked at 7-Eleven. If they would have just worked a minimum wage job. That's a big deal, especially when you think about becoming a rock star. You're like, well, maybe your family's really poor, and so you want to be a musician because you feel like you can make it, and if you make it, then you can pull your family out of poverty, which is really noble, and it's a really common thought process. Is not only in music but in sports too. You want to try and make it. You want to try and make it. Well, in music at least, especially in the publishing atmosphere that we're in now, this is not going to pull your family out of poverty. You're spending more money than anyone else is. So I went and I did my own little budget. Now, most of these are based on the numbers that we just talked about. So you see the red, these are your liabilities, what you have to pay back. The green is your income. So here, your merchandising, kind of zeroed that out because ideally you'll be making that back. This is what I came up with. So $155,900 that you're in debt. And you see here, I changed some of the numbers. So these two are adjusting for minimum wage. So what are the things that you could do if you were going to do a label to actually make money? Let's take a look here. So nowadays, because cameras are so prevalent, we've all got a camera, we've all got a buddy who knows a little bit about recording. Somebody's got a YouTube channel that they do something with. You could do a budget video for a lot less than this. You could do a budget video for a lot less than this. And actually, I just realized that that number needs to not exist. Okay. Because that was the total of this. That was the total of this here. So, let's say we're not paying for cameras. Let's say we already own that, or the person who we're hiring already owns that. We're paying for editing. Editing's a big deal. It's super expensive. Processing and transfer. I'm not really sure what this is. I think it was like actually taking it from film to a medium that you could distribute it from. So, but because we have digital cameras, there's really not a whole lot of that. So let's cut that. You could possibly get away with not paying for your crew's meals. It's kind of in bad taste, but you can do it. Let's see what else we could get rid of. Let's say the studio that you're recording in is one of your bandmates. So you don't need to worry about lodging. Maybe you don't need to worry about equipment. But I'll tell you what, the record label is going to demand that you use one of their producers. And you know what? Yeah. If they demand that you use one of their producers, that means that you'd have to be where they are. But let's say we didn't have to rent any equipment. And we didn't pay for catering. Let's look at this. We're still in the hole over $100,000. I'm gonna leave this stuff for you to look at. This is gonna be the first in a couple videos where I talk about how bad the music industry is right now. My first conclusion here is if you love music and you just have to do music, only do it because you love it. If you're gonna put it out, there's 100 mediums that you can personally put music out for people to see. There's lots of ways you can do it. But making your goal getting signed to a major record label is just these labels are dying. They're on their way out. They're surviving on nepotism right now. They're surviving on the corpse of what the music industry is, the guys that they signed early in their career in the 80s and 90s. And even most of those guys, they're doing their own independent thing. So if you want to see more of this, go ahead and like and subscribe. My brand new fiction website just opened, MatthewJWellman.com. I'll put a link to that in the bottom if you want to check out some of my fiction. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.